Okay, we have all the commissioners.
Yes.
Are we ready to start the meeting?
Yes.
Good morning. I would like to call the meeting of the Cook County Board of Commissioners. It's a regular meeting today to order. It's Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020. According to the COVID-19 pandemic, I will read to you some statements from statute that justify having a telephone or a virtual conference for our board meeting. Following statements should be made at the beginning of any meeting that commissioners attend by telephone to ensure the record reflects the necessary information to support telephone attendance. Number one, it has been determined that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the related peacetime emergency declaration made by Governor Waltz in accordance with Minnesota Statutes, Chapter 12. Number two, we have ensured that all members of the body participating in the meeting, wherever their physical location, can hear one another and can hear all discussion and testimony offered at today's meeting. Number three, we have also ensured that members of the public present at the regular meeting location of the body can hear all discussion and testimony and all votes of the members of the body. We have urged the public not to attend this meeting in person because of the COVID-19 pandemic and have ensured that members of the public can view and monitor the meeting remotely in real time by broadcasting the meeting on the Cook County website. Number four, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we have determined that it may be unfeasible for Cook County Auditor Brady Powers, County Attorney Molly Hicken, County Administrator Rena Rogers, and members of the Board of Commissioners to be physically present at the County Board meeting at the Cook County Courthouse. Number five, all votes will be conducted by roll call, so each member's vote on each issue will be identified and recorded. Would you please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I will do a quick roll call for the public to know that everyone's there. Commissioner Deschampe?
Aye. Here.
Commissioner DeCook?
Here.
Commissioner Mills?
Here.
Commissioner Storley?
Here.
Thank you. So we'll go to making adjustments to the agenda. If you have something, would you state your name, and then we could also entertain a motion at that time.
Commissioner Mills?
Go ahead.
Yeah, in reviewing the agenda and talking with HR Director Pamela Dixon as well as Interim Administrator Rena Rogers, I would ask that we just go down to number 8 and move the resignations and hires A through D to the consent agenda. Over.
Okay. Very good. I'm going to assume that that's a motion to do that.
Yes, please.
So I'm going to ask someone to support that motion.
Commissioner Dukirk, support.
Okay. Thank you. I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Storley?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk?
Aye.
Commissioner Deschampe?
Aye.
Okay. Therefore, with that change, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as proposed. Or if you want other changes, then please state your name and motion at this time.
Commissioner Mills moved to approve the adjusted agenda. Over.
Thank you. Do I have
Commissioner Dukirk,
support?
support.
Okay, thank you. Roll call vote. Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Commissioner Storley,
Aye.
Commissioner Dukert,
Aye.
Commissioner Deschampe,
Aye.
Commissioner Bershon's aye. Very good. Do we have anyone in the courthouse that is there for public comment?
We do, Mr. Chair, and additionally, I also have a couple to read, but we have Dave Homiak with us this morning.
Okay. So I will call on Dave Homiak for his comments to the board this morning.
Good morning.
You can, if it's easier to talk, you can pull that down.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Hearing no one reply, no, I'll proceed. My name is Dave Homiak. I'm a resident of just east of Grand Marais. I'm just outside the city limits. My family has owned property on Old Shore Road, specifically on the Old Shore Beach, for 23 years. It was originally a bed and breakfast. Some of you might know Old Shore Beach Bed and Breakfast was operated for 7 years, and then my family has used the residence part-time. Most recently, since I retired, I've lived in the property with my family for 3 years, and I live next door to something affectionately called Passion Pit. Some of you might know that area. Some of you have likely visited it. Some of you may have been conceived there. It goes back 80 years, and it's been a public use spot of both popularity and notoriety since it was decommissioned as a gravel pit. The area has quite a checkered history, detailed fully in Stacy Droulard's Walking the Old Road book, and I'd encourage you to read it if you haven't. My property is on the east end. I live on a private drive shared by the Hedstrom family and the Johnson family. And with that as history, my reason for addressing the commissioners today and the general public in this forum, and thank you for letting me have the opportunity to do this, is that it is a very popular use spot, and the traffic volumes going to that location have increased dramatically in the last 5 years, primarily as a result of three things. The town's notoriety as the coolest small town certainly has driven tourist volume. And tourists coming to the area try to do their research first, and they'll go to public media sites like the Lake Superior Tribe, which is a Facebook site that has 17,000 members. The site is listed on that as Passion Beach, a publicly accessible area with parking. And so it isn't just a local spot. And I want to emphasize that I see on a warm summer day upwards of 100 people use that lot. And they arrive 2 at a time or 3 at a time. So there's a corresponding number of cars that traverse the drive into that area. Its notoriety has increased most recently with the publishing of Stacy Droulard's book, Walking the Old Road, which details the history of the area, and people want to visit it that have read her book, and they want to walk the old road. And unfortunately, the old road isn't a road. It's a driveway. It was deeded by the county to Doug Nordahl when he built the property in 1996. It was actually deeded to the Hedstrom family and the Johnson family, and there's several others on that road. So my reason is simply I have a very specific goal, and that is to have the 4 property owners that own properties on Old Shore Beach actively manage their properties. And I believe that you've received some background information on the issue from Rena. She visited me yesterday and we walked the properties, and I understand she summarized in an email to all of you her understanding of the situation, we'll call it. Your board has responsibility, as I understand it, for managing Cook County properties, and there is a 35-foot wide strip of property that is county property. It's an unusually shaped parcel. It appears to zigzag onto what is now a deeded cart path shared by me and my neighbors, and then continue up the hill on Old Shore Road. So my request, my petition I'm making to you today is with regard to that 35 feet. Why does 35 feet matter? Because it's the gateway onto that beach, and all of the neighbors adjacent east and west of you are absentee owners. They haven't signed their properties, and so the public has come to assume that that's all public beach, and it's approximately 600 feet. It's a nice beach. That's why I live there. Not only does the public assume that it's all private beach, but they use the neighboring properties as a public bathroom, a public parking lot, a public fire pit area. I spoke to the private owner. This isn't Minnesota DOT or Minnesota DNR, but this is the private owner of the property to the west, and they were quite surprised to see the fire pits on their beach. They were quite surprised to see the path cut into the woods and the toilet paper and the defecation going on their property. They were very surprised to see that the parking lot has expanded to the west, and now there's room for 3 cars to park on their property. And they were also surprised to see that the Minnesota DOT put their sign, which says State of Minnesota property no dumping, directly on their property. And so there's a public perception that's been created, longstanding, and believe me, I understand it, that this is all public beach. It isn't. Now, with regard to your parcel, my specific petition to you is simple. In conversation with quite a number of people, from law enforcement to DNR enforcement to RENA, to the owners of the DOT properties, to the owners of the DNR property, really what they all advised me to do was to petition you with regard to your 35 feet of property. And my specific request that I'd like detailed in the minutes of this meeting includes 6 items. I would like the county to post hours of operation and enforce them on that parcel. And I would like those hours of operation to be 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. The shenanigans that go on down there after 10 p.m. are notorious. I don't need to tell any of you what goes on down there. It needs to stop. The traffic volumes are too high, and there are 18 neighbors that are negatively impacted by the activities that occur down there late at night. I would like the county to delineate clearly the property boundaries of that parcel. It's my understanding that the neighbor to the west is going to sign their property. They will receive the same sort of public harassment that I've received by taking these forms of action if the county doesn't delineate their property. Thirdly, I would like to see the county install and maintain a bathroom there. When the school groups come down and use that, they have Bobby's Biffs or whoever it is bring down an outhouse and park it on the property. But if this is going to be maintained as essentially a county park parcel with access to the beach, the neighbors can't have the public using their property to defecate and urinate on, which is what happens today. It's littered with tampons, condoms, diapers, and defecation. Fourthly, I would like to see a trash receptacle installed and maintained. I personally haul approximately a half dozen garbage bags, 33-gallon garbage bags, out of that area every year. I maintain it. Fifth, in conversation with the DNR is of the opinion that it is legal to ride ATVs on that beach. It's up to the property owners to make the determination as to whether they allow that. I submit to you that riding ATVs on Lake Superior Beach, particularly a beachfront that is subject to severe erosion, among other things, is a bad idea. You don't allow ATVs to ride on the beaches in the city. If the county is going to operate this as essentially a park, I would like them to post it no ATVs as well. And then lastly, my 6th item, I've maintained the road thinking that it was a private cart path for 23 years. The large plows that go by in the winter, for example, drive right around the corner and simply pile snow 3 feet deep there. I've plowed the corner since I owned the property 23 years. I've paid to have it plowed. I personally spend about 2 hours just plowing that corner out each year. In the last year alone, I've pulled a half dozen cars out of there that have gotten stuck in my driveway attempting to access this property, your Cook County property, because it isn't maintained. It's not plowed in any way. So in the winter, I would ask in the form of maintenance that it be plowed. That stub of Old Shore Road that is essentially shared with me as my private drive, the county needs to assist in maintaining it. And in the summer, the youngsters that go down there that have high-powered trucks and cars, their favorite thing is to leave that lot at a high rate of speed, spin their tires going around the corner up the hill. I had to rent a backhoe this spring because the potholes and the ripples around that corner were so severe, I couldn't drive on it. So I spent probably 4 hours with Hanson's little backhoe and their little grader on it, filling the potholes and grading the ribbons. If the county's contention is that that's your property and it's your property to provide access to that lot, I would expect then that the county also in the summertime grade and repair that small piece of access road. This is my formal petition to the county. Again, my goal is to have the property owners actively manage it, that it stop being the lawless land it has been. And I welcome any questions that you have or comments.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Womack. I guess we will take the time if there's a question because of the proposed petition. If not, then we'll move on to other comments.
Point of order. We do not respond to the public during public comment period,
Right.
and I do not wish to have us change our policy at this point.
Very good, thank you. Okay, do we have other public comments? I believe
Thank you.
Administrator
Thanks.
Rogers, you're going to read them?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I have two public comments that I've received. The first one is regarding the Day Logan permit, received June 17th. Dear Cook County Commissioners, the 2020 COVID season has been difficult. If you had time to see the location where the weekend events have been taking place, I thank you for your time. As you can see, my driveway abuts to their parking lot. This area is full of vehicles each weekend. They all make noise. The car noise, including alarms, porta potties, and full refuse containers, are only 3 things that make this business unsuitable for my neighborhood. We are the major objectors to Day's location for her events. We are the closest to the action and noise. Anyone in my location would object. We have repeatedly pointed out the zoning issues that would normally forbid crowds of this size on a residential lot. These events need to be conducted in an area that already allows for them, not next door. I am hopeful that you will vote no on this permit. Thanks, Janet Effler. That was the first comment that I received. The second one that I received, and I think also went to the commissioners, was on June 19th, and this was from Stacy Juilliard. Dear Commissioners, I'm writing to ask you to launch a plan of action in order to address the problem of systemic racism and white supremacy in our community. I'm posing the following questions for all of you to consider. Please try to address each question with your best, most honest answer. In what ways are we currently and actively supporting our Black, Indigenous, and marginalized community members? Number 2, what resources are offered at the county level to support people who have experienced racism in Cook County? Number 3, what is being done to work in collaboration with our schools to teach a more complete history of our region, state, and country? Number 4, how are leaders in Tofte, Lutsen, Grand Marais, and Grand Portage working together to address systemic racism in our communities? 5, how are we working with our white community members to remind them that inherent bias runs deep, that racism is learned at home, and that we are each responsible for unlearning racism? Number 6, how will we address this as a community for the short term and for the long term? Number 7, is there work being done to create a land acknowledgement statement recognizing that northeastern Minnesota is the traditional homeland of Anishinaabe people? Ignoring these questions is not an option. We do a deep disservice to each other by pretending that the murder of George Floyd, while in police custody in Minneapolis, and the pain and violence that Black and Indigenous people experience on a daily basis doesn't have an impact on our community. What happens on the street is not a product of urban environments. It's a product of systemic racism. As someone who cares deeply about history, racial justice, and equality, I believe now is the time to show leadership and collaboration by creating a short-term and long-term action plan. Sincerely, Stacy Drouillard.
Okay, thank you. I'm assuming those are the statements that are going to be shared.
Yes, they are, Mr. Chair.
Okay, very good. Thanks to everyone for providing their statements and for coming before the board for public comment this morning. With that, we'll go to the consent agenda items, and we had an adjustment with number 8 to be included in this consent agenda items by motion and approved. And I would entertain a motion now to approve the rest of the items by the whole as listed with the exception of number 8.
This is Commissioner Mills. I move to approve the consent agenda. Over.
Thank you. Support?
Support, Commissioner Dukirk.
Okay. Roll call vote. Mr. Storley?
Aye.
Commissioner Deschampe?
Aye. Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Commissioner Bershon's aye. So we have an agenda going forward, and we will now go to our Emergency Operations Command update and with Grace Grenauger and Mike Keyport. Who would like to start there?
I can go ahead and start.
Okay, thank you, Grace.
Thank you. All right, so the case count as of yesterday, June 22nd, was in the state of Minnesota, 33,227 people testing positive for the virus since the pandemic began. 29,065 no longer need to isolate, and 1,384 people have died from the virus. This past week, there were 2,534 additional people testing positive throughout the state. The pace of new COVID-19 infections has continued to slowly decline throughout the state in the past week. We have no new positive COVID-19 cases within the past week in Cook County, though Lake County reported 4 additional cases in the past week. Updates from the EOC this past week include the Care Center will be resuming outdoor visitations for residents starting this Thursday. Elsa Lundy, in her role as an AmeriCorps Emergency Response Service member, will be assisting as North Shore Health operationalizes this change on Thursday and Friday of this week. I worked with a team of staff from North Shore Health to talk through the timing of what's called a point prevalence survey at the Care Center. This is a public health tool that at some point could be recommended by MDH for our local long-term care facility and has been used at other facilities throughout the state. Kristen Diaruda-Wharton trained and continues to train on the case investigation and tracing process through our regional initiative to decentralize this role from the State Department of Health into a function of our local public health departments. Our local emergency preparedness group met last Thursday and partner organizations gave updates. Most are in a fairly operational phase of response at the moment. I met last Friday with a small group of other local public health professionals, our health educator, Kristen, the SHIP coordinator, Andrea Orist, and a grad student and volunteer, Andrea Tofty, to discuss how to streamline and operationalize enhanced support for our local businesses. We are developing educational materials for businesses and are on track to begin to offer on-site technical assistance later this week. which will be crucial for supporting both the economic and physical health of our community throughout the pandemic. Both Mike Keyport and myself were in communication with the U.S. Forest Service this past week regarding wildland firefighters and best practices as they relate to COVID-19 and potential travel during fire season. We reached out this week to the Art Colony to distribute donated white face masks. The Art Colony is planning to use them for a printmaking project and would then redistribute the masks to youth or school if and when it resumes in person. Kristen and I gave a presentation last Friday to law enforcement that included basic information on COVID-19, how to protect oneself at work, testing, and what happens when a person tests positive. Kristen and I are considering creating a similar, more general presentation and recording it so that it could be held on our hub site and accessed by local businesses as needed. And that is all I have.
Thank you for all you do. We'll go by roll call for comment or questions to Grace. Start with Commissioner Dukirk.
No comments. Thank you, Grace.
Thank you. Commissioner Mills.
This is Commissioner Mills. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Grace, for the update. I don't have any questions. I'm very pleased to hear about the ongoing work, especially with Elsa and Kristen on board. That's very encouraging and exciting. I'm excited also to see the printmaking masks. That's been a hope of mine for a while, is face coverings, to see some face coverings that are showing our humanity there too. Over.
Thank you. Commissioner Deschampe.
Yeah, the 4 cases in Lake County, is that plus does the one that they had before included in that, or is that 4 new ones?
That is 4 new ones.
Okay, so are we, with all the tourists in town now, are we anticipating we're going to be getting some new cases in the county now, and are we prepared for that?
So with the tourist season and the stay-at-home order lifting, we are anticipating much higher traffic and movement of people into and out of the county. And as that happens, we are anticipating that there will be more cases and preparing for that.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Commissioner Storley.
Thanks again, Grace, for what you're doing and for your wise decisions on preparedness. As you just stated, we'll need to be prepared. Thanks again.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you, Grace, for all you do, and it's really great and long overdue that you have a team to work with, and so we're very grateful for that. And job well done, definitely in all respects. And the same to you, Mike Keyport. We appreciate what you're doing. Do you have some updates for us?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, commissioners, community members, just a few things to add to Grace's report. Just kind of a FYI, the State Emergency Operations Center has been activated for over 100 days now, which is sadly a state record. The State Emergency Operations Center also acquired what they're calling paper masks. I assume they're like the blue surgical masks you see. They are designated for law enforcement and corrections officers, and they go by the number of law enforcement members that they have recorded in the state on their post board. So we have a number of officers, as well as, because we have a jail, they're considered corrections officers. So I believe the number we're getting from the state of these paper masks, I want to say it's right around 2,500. And that might be good for them. They might be a little more maybe disposable, instead of having to clean a cloth mask or whatever. So they should be coming in the next week or so. The Army National Guard is considering continuing to test in long-term care facilities throughout the state. I just got an email this morning that they're going to continue that almost all the way to July. I don't know that they will get this far north. I'm assuming they're going to bigger facilities. There is a little concern with the cloth, well, any type of mask, I should say, not just cloth masks, but especially cloth masks being thrown out. They're finding them in parks and ditches and in places, and of course, then it's an infection control problem. And I don't know if we're having any problems locally, but it's definitely something to keep our eyes open. Keep our eyes open to, and you know, the city parks and such. I did read kind of an interesting article regarding masks versus face shields, if you will. It was written by a couple doctors that they say face shields in some cases for logical things like not being so warm in the summer, but also covering your eyes. And if you're close to somebody that sneezes, you're less likely to get stuff in your eyes or on your face in any other way. And people tend to kind of play with their masks. If they're wearing a cloth face covering, they tend to move it around, take it off, put it on, touch their face more than they should. So there's actually one larger college that is going to go 750 people are going to use face shields in their classrooms instead of masks. So just kind of an interesting tidbit. And that's what I have for you today.
Okay, thank you. So go by roll call for any questions or comments to our emergency management manager, Commissioner Storley.
Thank you. Yes, Mike, I had recently heard something on NPR about face shields, that with the warm summer weather, it's a little bit easier and you keep your hands off your face better, as you said. So maybe face shields will be the next item that we will need to look into. Thanks for what you do.
Thank you. Commissioner Deschampe?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a question for Mike or for Grace, but how many tests have we completed in Cook County, or have they taken?
I can respond to that. So I get the update every week, and when I got the update last week, it was 171. I also heard that MDH is going to start posting the number of tests completed by county on its website. I heard that last week, and I went to their website yesterday, and I didn't see it yet, but I know that's something that they're working on, and we've talked about putting it up on our hub site too. It gets complicated to get the information to flow from the lab to the EOC to the hub site correctly, but I do get that update every week from Kimber.
Okay, and the one positive test that we had there, was that a test taken here or somewhere else?
Here.
Okay.
It was a test here.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Commissioner Duker?
No questions. Thank you, Mike, and thanks for giving us another tidbit of information and trying to keep it positive. Thank you.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mike. I don't have any questions at this time. I do appreciate the updates on especially the face covering discussion, and just as we understand the virus and human behavior and just what's going to work best in combating the spread. So thanks for keeping us posted there. Over.
Thank you. We'll move on to number 5. The AIS Advisory Committee was a PFD that was included on our agenda, stating now that the Soil and Water Soil and Water Board is going to be supervising the aquatic invasive species program, and therefore is creating an advisory committee. And in the past, to my understanding, Commissioner Dukirk served on the Cook County invasive team, and I think Commissioner Storley was the alternate. So I would assume that this change is needed, which is a request to have a county commissioner serve, and I'd assume then we'd also pick an alternate. So are there any questions about that? Please state your name and I'll call on you.
Mr. Chair, this is Amanda
Yeah.
Weaver, the AIS coordinator. I'm here
Thank you.
to answer any questions.
Okay. Do you have any other comments other than what I've said, Amanda?
The AIS task force was dissolved during the transition from the soil and water to soil and water for the AIS program, and it was Frank Moog was the original commissioner, and then Jenny Storley served on the task force.
Okay.
And
Do we have someone? Go ahead.
It's okay. I'm done.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, or is someone willing to serve on this as a commissioner?
Is Commissioner Mills?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How often is it anticipated that the advisory committee will meet over?
Thank you,
Amanda?
Commissioner. This advisory committee is, the purpose for it right now is to update the 5-year plan that was in place 5 years ago. So most of those tasks have been accomplished and are needing to be updated. So it's an as-needed basis, and since that plan needs to be updated, I'm anticipating once a month until the plan is updated.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have a commissioner that's willing to serve?
Chairman Bersheim, I would be willing to continue serving unless someone else would like to do it with fresh new eyes. Over.
Okay. Okay, so Commissioner Storley has offered. Anyone else? I think it would be appropriate to also ask if someone could be an alternate.
This is Commissioner Mills. I'd be willing to be an alternate. Over.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments about that? Then I would entertain a motion to approve Commissioner Storley as the member of this team with the alternate of Commissioner Mills.
I'll make that motion, Commissioner Duker.
Thank you.
Commissioner
Do we
Deschampe,
have
second.
support?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Deschampe. Roll call vote. Commissioner Mills.
Aye.
Commissioner Storley.
Aye.
Commissioner Duker.
Aye.
Commissioner Deschampe.
Aye.
I didn't hear Commissioner Deschampe.
Aye.
Thank you. And Commissioner Bersheim's aye, passes unanimously. Next, we'll go on to MIS. Network Firewise replacement. We received some information on that to approve spending $45,000. Approved spending $45,000 to replace 2 network firewall hardware devices and 3 years of support and maintenance. And I'll call on Administrator Rogers for any updates to that or information that we need to know.
Just really quickly, it seems like a large expenditure, but it's one that we save for every year when we do our capital replacement schedule. These are 7-year-old devices. This is the way we secure our network from dubious and and nefarious attacks. And it takes on increased importance for our mobile users because this is the way we allow, in a secure way, our mobile users, such as our deputies and their squads, to get to the data they need inside of our network. To give you some perspective on these devices, these were ordered before we had broadband. And so the capabilities of the devices that are in place now are absolutely maxed out. And in fact, with so many remote workers these days, sometimes people can't get into the system or they get knocked off, which is super problematic for our deputies in particular. So with this upgrade, or with this replacement, we're upgrading to a more greater capacity appliance. And so there's a little more expense than we anticipated. However, every year we pay about $9,000 for maintenance and support on these devices as well. So what this does for us is for $45,000, we are both replacing it and by buying the maintenance up front, we pay for 2 years and we get 1 year, extra year free. So in my budget, where I budget for maintenance, I'll be able to reduce that in that budget by $9,000 each of the next 3 years. So it's pretty much what we anticipated. The original bid that we got was over $55,000, and Keishan and I continued negotiating until we got this rather favorable price. This will make a big difference for our mobile workers, so I'm hoping you will approve it today.
Very good. Have any questions or comments? Please state your name and I'll call on you as Commissioner. Okay, then I would entertain a motion to approve the purchase, $45,000 of the network firewall replacement hardware.
This is Commissioner Mills. I move to approve the replacement of the firewall. Over.
We have support?
Support, Storley.
Okay, Commissioner Storley has support. Roll call vote. Commissioner Deschampe?
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Commissioner Storley?
Aye.
Bershon is aye. Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioners.
We'll go on to land services. First item there, these are recommendations from the Planning Commission. And the first one is the Lutsen Town Center rezone. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the last request to amend the zoning on 2 parcels within the Lutsen Town Center business landscape. Do we have someone that needs to add in any more information to that? A PDF on that information?
I didn't hear that.
Okay.
I think it's
Any questions or comments on that one from any of the commissioners? Please state your name and I'll call on you.
Which one are we on, Myron?
This is the LATS
I'm sorry.
rezone.
Mr. Lane's here to present it, so.
Myron? Hello, this is Rena.
Yeah.
Bill Lane is here to present those items.
That's what I thought. Okay. That's what I was asking. Okay. Mr.
Thank you.
Lane, then would you like to comment on that further?
What are we talking about?
Mr. Chair, if I can just kind of, this is on the agenda. This is from the Planning Commission meeting of May 13th, 2020, and this is a series of parcels. Jeff Latz, who's a well-entrenched property owner and business owner in Lutsen, has a couple of properties that he's been working with land services and before that planning and zoning to try and make some sense out of some boundaries and that sort of thing. And in the packet that I included, there's a before and an after depiction, which is what the rezoning involves. It's just little jigsaw puzzle pieces rather than large parcels and large landscape reconfigurations. And the whole reason why Jeff Latz wanted to do that is to make a little more sense of the natural boundaries that are there. Particularly, there's a creek and there's also a road, an access road. And so what Jeff has proposed is to make the boundaries parallel or mirror the geologic boundaries, which is that intermittent creek, and then also the property boundary bisector, which is the access road. And those are pretty well presented in the depictions that he presented as part of his application. Planning Commission had very few comments or concerns. Makes sense. And one of the things that we look for in land services is to make parcels and parcel configurations that are reasonable and not geometrically challenging. So this was approved unanimously and forwarded to the Board of Commissioners with the hope that you would approve it as well.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Lane on this proposal to approve? Please state your name.
Chairman Bertrand?
No?
Commissioner
Yes, go
Story?
ahead. Yes.
In looking at these maps, it really makes sense. We've had a downtown plan since the early 2000s, and I think for Jeff to go ahead and outline a part of the land that makes more sense with the road and the creek and the buildings and everything, and no comments other than a couple of phone calls from the public, I think shows that he wants to make the property more defined for future consideration. So thanks, Bill, for putting this together too. Over.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Please state your name.
This is Commissioner Mills.
Go ahead, Mr. Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question. Everything is laid out very well and clear, and so my only question, and maybe I missed this in the information here, but there's the before map, then there's the after map, and then my question is about the proposed future admin subdivision. Can you speak to that a little bit, Bill? Over.
Yes, Commissioner Mills, the rezone is a prelude to an administrative subdivision, which would just make sure that those reconfigured, the rezoned pieces of property are contiguous with the larger parcel and that respective zoning. And we spoke with Jeff about this at length, and it's really kind of a systematic process rather than just, kind of a haphazard approach to property ownership and that sort of thing. So the recipe that we gave Mr. Latz was to rezone it, and then we would facilitate the boundary reconfiguration with the administrative subdivision process.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the Latz request to amend the zoning on the two parcels within the Lutsen Town Center business landscape.
So moved, Storley.
Okay, support?
Commissioner Mills, I'll support.
Okay, roll call vote. Commissioner Dukert?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Commissioner Deschampe?
Aye.
Commissioner Storley?
Aye.
Mr. Bersheim's aye, passes unanimously. Next item under land services is interim use permit to allow aggregate washing at the Humphrey gravel pit. There was a PSC DF on that, and here again, the Planning Commission recommends board approval of George and Cheryl Humphrey's request for an interim use permit to allow aggregate washing at their pit adjacent to the Ball Club Lake Road. Mr. Lane, any more comments on that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just wanted to follow up that this operation is focused on the 17-mile reconfiguration and repavement of Highway 61, centered on Grand Portage, and Northland Constructors received the bid on April 24th, and we immediately engaged in conversations with them, mindful that the project is going to require a significant amount of clean material. Material that comes right out of the ground can be clean, but in this case, with a super pave asphalt recipe, it has to be very clean. So we worked with George and Cheryl Humphrey, and who have a conditional use permit for gravel extraction, and Northland, to make sure that this permit was in place before the construction season started and it became an emergency, which it has in the past decade, 2 decades of highway construction in Cook County. Not all the T's are crossed and not all the I's are dotted. So we worked with them, brought them into the Planning Commission. Their request is for, they still aren't sure about how much volume they're going to have to wash. The good thing is that their pit is perfectly conducive to a wash operation. There will be no discharging of water off-site. It will all be infiltrated and recharging on-site, and it's a pretty safe process. It's a well-time proven process. And based on that, the Planning Commission had a unanimous recommendation that it be approved and forwarded to the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Please state your name and I will call on you. None I hear, so we'll go on to having a motion to accept aggregate washing at the Humphrey gravel pit as proposed.
This is Commissioner Dish. I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you. Support?
Commissioner Mills, I'll support. Over.
Thank you. Do a roll call vote. Commissioner Storley?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Commissioner Deschampe?
Aye.
Commissioner Dukert?
Aye.
Commissioner Versheim's aye. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
So we have taken care of human resources under the consent agenda, and we'll go to the auditor. Oh, excuse me, E, County Administrator Research, which would be, I hope that Gary Wires is with us today if we need to ask any questions. And what we're looking at is moving, reopening I think the correct terminology here would be to reopen the county administrative search and approve DDA to post for the position and adopt the schedule proposed. So I guess I'll turn it over to Administrator Rogers and then maybe Mr. Wires to see if they have any additional information.
Mr. Chair, this is HR Director Pamela Dixon.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry that's under your item. I apologize for that. Go ahead.
No worries. Thank you, sir. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, colleagues, and community members who are listening in, there is a memo from Mr. Wires dated June 17th that was in your packet. He is not able to attend the meeting today, and so I am here representing that. In summary for discussion, as you said, for today's meeting, we're looking for approval to reopen the search and specifically approve the position profile that would be posted. If approved today, it would be posted tomorrow. Also, the job description, which was previously approved, so that has not changed. And as you said, the timeline, we need to determine dates, and Mr. Wires has put together a tentative schedule for that. So today we're looking to approve moving forward and getting approvals on those 3 items specifically.
Okay. Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners on this? Please state your name and I'll call on you.
This is Commissioner Mills.
Go ahead, Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I was a little confused or just overlooked the setting of the dates. I would be very comfortable approving the posting. Just a little shaky on the final interview dates. I'm not certain how important that is right now. If we have any more info on that, that'd be helpful. Thank you. Over.
Okay,
So
thank you. Go ahead.
Sorry, this is Pamela Dixon. Commissioner Mills, point of clarification, you're wanting more information on the final interview dates? Or if there's flexibility with those dates, which I would assume there is, but what I will do is we have a meeting scheduled with Mr. Wire this afternoon at 3 o'clock, and so if there are issues that I can bring forward, I'll do that. So your specific question is around the interview dates?
Thank you. I don't have a. I guess what I'm saying is I'm less comfortable setting the final interview date today. I would like more time personally, but I am very comfortable posting after tomorrow or whenever, as soon as we can there. And so I don't know if I have a question. I just don't know. I guess my question would be is how important is it that we set the final interview date today?
I could offer my thoughts on that as well as entertain someone else. I think this is a timeline, and my understanding of a timeline that it's not we're going to do this on a specified date like August 24th, but it is a laid out process that could happen. More than likely may change. If anything changes in the preceding dates, it will have an impact. So I would think that as long as we understand this as a timeline rather than a prescribed date, then I think that would that be sufficient to you, Mr. Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's exactly what I was wondering, and I am perfectly comfortable with that timeline. It was just that specific final interview date that I wanted to look into a little bit more on my end of things. So
yeah,
that
no,
really
good question. Good question. Anyone else want to comment on that? State your name. Any other questions about what's proposed? Then I'll entertain a motion to reopen the county administrator search and approve DDA to post for the position and adopt the timeline proposed.
Commissioner Dukirk, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do we have support?
Storley,
Mills?
support.
Oh, I think I got Storley first. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Storley is support, and so roll call vote. Commissioner Deschampe.
Aye.
Commissioner Storley.
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk.
Aye.
Commissioner Mills.
Aye.
Commissioner Bersheim's aye. And we'll start the process. Thank you. Go to the auditor, Airport Cares Grant. This is to approve by motion to accept the amendment number 01 to the State of Minnesota Airport Maintenance and Operation Grant Contract number 1033473 in the amount of $30,000 and authorize the board chair and auditor to sign the amendment. Turn that over to Auditor Powers for any more comments.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
So what you'll see here is a contract, an amendment. So what they've done is we have a maintenance and operations grant, 2-year grant which is just over $41,000 each year. So you'll see that in the original contract, 2 years, the $82,960, and then they've added this $30,000 into that. So it's an amendment to an existing contract. It's used differently, obviously, in all of the CARES Act, as you've seen in all of them. It's related to the COVID-19. So I presume the Airport Commission will be talking about this, how this will be spent, and then we'll have to submit for reimbursement for those expenditures. It's got a 4-year timeline, so there's no rush on spending the $30,000, although they asked to expedite. So I guess we'll make every attempt to do that, but we have plenty of time. Any questions on that? I mean, in general, it's for prevent, respond to the virus, keep the airport safe and reliable, keep workers employed if there were any part-time staff or whatever that might be. Otherwise, let go or have hours cut could be used to keep them fully employed, those types of uses.
Okay, thank you. So are there any questions from any of the commissioners? Please state your name and I will call on you. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve this amendment.
Commissioner Mills, I'll move.
Okay, thank you. Support?
Darling, support.
Thank you. Moved by Mills and supported by Commissioner Storley, and we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Dukert.
Aye.
Commissioner Mills.
Aye.
Commissioner Storley.
Aye.
Commissioner Deschampe.
Aye.
Commissioner Bershon's aye. Next item for the auditor is the 2021 county budget calendar. We received a PDF, and this is to review the budget calendar and make any revisions that's necessary. So I'll turn it over to Auditor Powers to make some comments, and we'll see if there's any suggestions after that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, these are the, call it guidelines or work plan. Typically, it's adjusted. This is really based on previous years with some minor changes. I can highlight it here. As soon as we approve it today, then departments are already asking, what's my timeline? With other work, they'd like to get started and know when they need to approve their budget. So set a deadline of July 24th to get a month to do their department requests. That includes other non-county departments, such as historical societies, etc. In here, scheduling general fund summary presentation to the county board, August 11th. That could be at a meeting as soon as July 28th if we have all the information. If we don't, then it could be on August 11th. Major fund presentations typically follow. Major funds being sheriff, highway, public health, human services. I'll be talking to human services today, tomorrow. Typically, they need more time than July 24th because of their state grant deadlines and the analysis based on that. So I'll talk to Allison, and you'll have an amendment on that when she figures out a date that she can submit. Then there's time after that, after those presentations. You could schedule other presentations. We could have virtual town hall meetings if needed. We need to then set and adopt our budget. The last board meeting would be September 22nd. And at that meeting, we set the date for the truth and taxation hearing late in November or early in December. We have until the 30th you could have a special meeting if we needed extra time to set that final budget and levy. So then we would, at that date, we'd set that meeting. Typically, we set it December 1st, that first week. December 1st to the 4th, we try to avoid the Thanksgiving holiday and the EMC meeting. Will that happen this year? And that meeting has to go beyond 6 p.m. And then we have until the end of the month, last business day, December 28th, to finalize the budget and levy. So that's for any questions.
Okay, any questions? Please state your name. I'll call on you. Okay, then I think we can go ahead and approve this. Is that correct, Auditor Powers?
Yeah, and we'll come back with any changes as they happen.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to approve this proposed budget calendar with the timeline, with further review.
So moved, Commissioner Dukirk.
Very good, thank you. Do we have support?
Commissioner Mills,
Norwood
support.
support.
Good, Commissioner Mills to support. Very good. Roll call vote. Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Commissioner Starley?
Aye.
Commissioner Duker?
Aye.
Commissioner Deschampe?
Aye.
Commissioner Bershheim is aye. Thank you. Then we'll go on to the administrator and item A of Deschampe, resignation and special election resolution. I guess this is sort of a sad and glad moment or situation. Sad to have Commissioner Deschampe leave our board. It's added so much to it, and it's been a very good member to have, raising a lot of good issues, and I think building a better relationship with the east end of our county. So I will turn it over to Administrator Rogers or I guess it would be her, yes, to indicate the process that we'll go through for the special election.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. So the recommendation in front of the board this morning is to accept with regrets the resignation of District 1 Commissioner Robert Deschampe and approve a resolution calling for special election for District 1 Commissioner. This is, of course, due to his recent election victory to become the Grand Portage Tribal Chair. He will be stepping down as District 1 Commissioner effective August 21st, 2020. And with this notice, the county needs to immediately prepare for a special election. The first opportunity for a special election is at the same time as the national general election, which is Tuesday, November 3rd. If a primary election is required, the November 3rd date will serve as the primary election, and then the special election will be held on the second Tuesday in February 2021. But if there's only there's not a need for a primary, then we would have the final election being in November. So with that, I'm just going to read real quickly the resolution that Auditor Powers prepared that you're being asked to vote on. Resolution calling for a special election for District 1 Commissioner vacancy. Whereas the Cook County Board received official notice on June 23rd, 2020, that District 1 County Commissioner Robert Deschampe would resign his position as County Commissioner effective August 21st, 2020, with more than 1 year remaining in his unexpired term. And whereas Minnesota Statute 351.055 provides that for prospective vacancies that will occur as a result of a resignation, preparations may begin for the special election immediately after written resignation is received by the Cook County Board. And whereas Minnesota Statutes 375.101 states that if 1 year or more remains in the unexpired term of a county commissioner, a special election must be held on a date authorized by Section 205.10, Subdivision 3A, and whereas Section 205.10, Subdivision 3A lists the uniform election dates for special elections, and the nearest allowable date is the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November 2020. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Cook County hereby calls for a special election to be held on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, to fill the vacancy which will occur in the seat for Commissioner District 1 on August 21st, 2020. And be it further resolved that if a special election primary is required, the special election primary will be held on November 3rd, 2020, and the special election will be held on the next available uniform date, the second Tuesday in February 2021. And be it further resolved that the Cook County Auditor's Office shall begin preparations for the special election immediately.
Thank you.
I would just like to say, before you all discuss it, that I have thoroughly enjoyed working with the Commissioner, and look forward to the opportunity to continue to work with him. So thank you for your service.
You bet. We're not gone yet.
Any questions or comments? Please state your name as Commissioner. We'll call on you. If none, then we'll
Commissioner
entertain a
Dukert.
motion. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Dukert.
I just wanted to thank Bobby for his time and energy that he put into it and his participation, not only locally, but regionally and across the state. And Commissioner Deschampe, you are probably the first and last duck that I've ever worked with, and it has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Please state your name.
This is Commissioner Mills.
Commissioner Mills.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Deschampe, for your service. Congratulations on your victory. Look forward to working with you in the future, and as Commissioner Dukert said, I really appreciate it, your work, especially in the region and in our county as well. So best of wishes, and look forward to seeing you in the future too. Over.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Chairman Bersheim,
Yes.
this is, in a way, it's a very sad time to know that he stepped forward a few years back and and put his name out there and said, I'm willing to be a county commissioner and to be a representative also from Grand Portage, which had been many, many years before we ever had a representative from that end of the county. So much appreciation for stepping up to doing that, Bobby. And then in working with you, I have learned quite a bit in terms of humor and also your steadfastness in making sure that you put forth your opinions and comments representing the people of the East End, and I appreciate that very much. And I would say we'll probably have more statements because August is coming up, and this is only the beginning. So, but again, thank you so much for your service. Over.
Thank you. And I'd like to further comment. I worked with Commissioner Deschampe on the Public Safety and Transportation Committee, and I'd like to just thank you for all the knowledge that you brought to our county with your past experiences and expertise, and I think no commissioner has really known the back roads or all the roads in Cook County as well as you, and it's really come to a great addition to our decision-making process, and certainly look forward to working with you as the new tribal chair as well. I'm sure you'll do very well there, and glad for your selection there, and glad for Grand Portage as well. With that, there are no more comments or questions, and we'll entertain a motion to accept the resignation and go through, approve the special election process for District 1.
This is Commissioner Dukert. With regrets, I will approve both.
Thank you. Do you have support?
Commissioner Mills will support.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Commissioner Dukert?
Aye.
Commissioner Deschampe?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Storley,
Aye.
Commissioner Deschampe, aye with regret. Very good.
Mr. Chair?
Go on to administration. Commissioner Mills, was that you?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did have a question for Auditor Powers just as far as the filing period is concerned. Thought that would be good to have in a public meeting here, just to try to get the word out. Do we have dates for that, the opening and closing of filing for that seat? Over.
Commissioner Mills, we actually have, because Bobby gave us this notice so quickly, we now have we have a lot of time for this, and I've created let's say a preliminary plan. We could, and this gives us plenty of time, so there's no rush. A notice of filing published on the 10th of July, filing period starting on the 28th, ending on August 11th, and then withdrawal ends on the 13th, and then absentee ballot period starts on September 18th. This, because of the timing of this, we're able to coincide this with our late filing period, the city, the hospital, and the school. And I think that would, avoid confusion with notices going out. They'll have the same dates and schedule. I'm going to send this to the, I just put this together yesterday, I'm going to send this to the Secretary of State's office. That's typical, just to make sure that they don't see anything unusual, because special elections are unusual. So I'm going to send this to this, confirm it, and then I'll come back to you. I'll probably just do it by email quickly if this is confirmed. And any questions?
Okay. Any other questions? Very good. Go on then to administrator updates. Administrator Rogers?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Just a few updates. As you know, I started talking with the task force that you all approved to do some planning for CARES funding, and people are working on coming up with their ideas and their lists. We still are waiting on the state. They finished their special session on Friday without agreeing and passing legislation on how the CARES funding would be distributed. So that's still up in the air. We were hoping to see those funds by the end of June, and for local government distribution, I'm not sure when we will see them. So stay tuned on that. As soon as I know something, I will certainly send that information out. We have continued to do a little bit more work around here. As I think I reported last time, our Windows project is all done. We will have a walkthrough with the architect, final walkthrough on Friday, just to make sure everything is meets our expectations. And we also are in the process of installing the security service windows, which will also help us as we open up. Protect our assessor's office and our auditor's office folks with glass between them and the public. So let's see. We also completed resurfacing the ramp that goes up to the second floor last week. So those are big projects, things that really needed to be done. So those have all gotten done. We have started a partial reopening of the courthouse based on requirements from the 6th District Court, which came from the state's Supreme Court Chief Justice. That has been going actually pretty well. We've been open daily from 10 to 2, and Deputy Green has been here doing security checks he's part of our court court security anyway, so he's been doing that. So the courthouse has been open to public traffic, to court admin and any court business, and also by appointment to other departments. So he checks people in and directs them to the proper place. Starting, that will continue like that until July 1st, when the courthouse, all things will be the same, except for the courthouse will be open from 8 to 4, starting July 1st, for those same things, by appointment for most business and court business anytime. Also on the 26th, we will start allowing people to come in to the auditor's office without appointment for business related to absentee ballots. So for the starting this Friday until through next Tuesday, that'll just be between 10 and 2. But after that, it'll be 8 to 4, regular courthouse hours. So I think it's going well. I think we're managing the situation for the safety of public and our staff as best we can. So one other thing, after we conclude this meeting, I just remind commissioners that we will be signing into a separate meeting, a closed meeting to talk about contract negotiations, and that I sent that out in an email yesterday, that's a separate dial-in number with a separate code. So I guess I would ask that after this meeting, perhaps we take a short recess before we convene our closed meeting. And that's really what I have today.
Okay, thank you. We'll just do an opportunity for commissioners to ask a question by stating your name, and I'll call on you rather than doing the roll call. Any questions or comments for Administrator Rogers? Okay. Thank you. We'll go on to employee concerns, commissioner concerns, commissioner reports. Do we have any commissioner reports? Please state your name and we'll call on you.
This is Commissioner Deschampe.
Okay, Commissioner Mills.
I guess I just wanted to bring it somewhat more formally to the board. Been getting communications from members in our community who would like us to look at county policies, much like we heard in the public comment today, county policies and procedures, and you know, I guess maybe across the board as far as how we're either in a racist system or combating it or just our awareness of it. And Sheriff Lutsen, I think, has done a great job of addressing a lot of these concerns that I thought it would be worth the Public Safety Committee taking a look at. And I don't know if other commissioners have been getting requests, but some of the requests that I've been getting have had specific questions or specific points to look at when looking at our policies. And from my perspective, I don't see the areas where we may be in conflict, and it can be my blind side there. But I think it's a worthwhile discussion to have, and I think if we can get ahead of it, if at all possible, then that's all the better. And I just wanted to see if other commissioners thought that would be a worthwhile thing to look at as well. Over.
Okay. Any response to that by any other commissioners?
Commissioner Dukirk?
Go ahead, Commissioner Dukirk.
Quite a while back, I had brought forward to the administrator and the department head a Human Rights Commission here in Kent County, which could address things like that community-wide. I know as in staffing, that's addressed with HR. But on a community-wide level, which is what we're being asked to address, that's most likely where something like that would come forward. And when I asked for a Human Rights Commission, it just seemed that our staff was already had all their plates full and we were unable to do that. I have community members interested in serving on that committee. I have bylaws written. I have people who have started a Human Rights Commission in other counties. I have all of the information and data to move ahead on it. I just don't have the support to do that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on that topic?
Mr. Chair, this is Rena. I'm wondering if that would be a good topic for our next committee of the whole.
Okay, that's good. I would like to comment as well. I think Commissioner Dukirk's proposal of a Human Rights Commission is really the way to go, and thank you for that, and thank you for your work on that. I think public safety gets a little bit more in regards to, you know, the role of our law enforcement agency, and I think that's worthy of discussion there from the perspective of law enforcement. But I really feel supportive of the Human Rights Commission. I've worked with some of these issues in the past in my previous jobs and human relations training, and I was involved in undoing racism here at group. I was on that board for quite a few years ago with John Warren and Bob Carter, and I believe one other person that moved out of the area. And that we were having workshops and so forth, and it was very, very well done. I'm not proposed. I have talked with Mr. Moran on this in the past year or so, but I think all of us are so busy. But he was the go-to person on that and was in charge of a grant. But I do think we need to take a look at this, and really am supportive of Human Rights Commission kind of approach. And I believe other counties have done this, and that would be a good approach. So I would say, would anyone be opposed to doing this at a committee of the whole coming up in the future?
Board Chair Deschampe. No,
Yes.
not opposed at all. So we could get some copies ahead of time of what Heidi's already put together, so we would have some guidance on it. I think it would be very appropriate to bring that up at Committee of the Whole. Thank you.
Yes, good. Okay, so Commissioner Dukirk, we'll take you up on that if you could get us the information, and thanks for your work on that in the past and your willingness to move this forward. Any other questions or comments on that topic?
Dukirk?
Yes.
Is it all right for me to bring a citizen to the Committee of the Whole? I have been working on this with a citizen who has a consulting firm with HR.
I don't see a problem with that as long as it's not pertaining to a business interest, but
Nope.
informative. Yeah.
Nope, not at
Thank
all.
you.
She's just been working with me on starting a commission like this in Cook County.
Good. Commissioner Dukirk, I know that this has come up in some of our past conversations. Are there other counties that have started this? I thought I had attended a session some years ago on AMC on this. Are you aware of that?
Olmsted County, yep, Olmsted County for sure. That's the contact I have for a gal who started that commission. And then I think Stearns County, there's maybe only 4 in the state that are county run. The others are independent.
Okay. Well, thank you. Well, we'll get that on the agenda for the Committee of the Whole going
This is
forward.
Commissioner Mills.
Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just wanted to thank Commissioner Dukirk for that approach, and I greatly appreciate it. And I look forward to the Committee of the Whole discussion to see what I don't see and where we can improve and any policies we can put in place to protect our citizens and vulnerable areas as well. Over.
Okay. I also know that I think the school district is doing some work or contemplating how they're going to proceed with some of the issues. I also would suggest that it would be, if it would be all right at some point to have someone from Grand Portage represented in this because of our unique situation here in Cook County. Commissioner Deschampe, do you know of someone that could be contacted? Could it be John Morn or?
Yeah, you could try to contact him, I guess.
Okay, I'll reach out to him or Administrator Rogers. Would you rather? I'd be glad to reach out to him.
This is Commissioner Dukirk.
Yes.
Myron, I think you're getting ahead of the cart a little bit. I think we need to have the discussion and find out if this is something that we can actually do and then decide the makeup. Normally when we start a new commission, we have the discussion before we reach out to community members.
Okay. No, that's a good point. I was only suggesting it as a future thing, and the timing, I think, definitely could be, at any time, but just hoping that would be considered. Okay. Any other reports? Meeting update? Meetings to know? We have correspondence from the county sales tax to April and the April lodging tax. And I believe that, as was mentioned by Administrator Rogers, that we're going to have a special meeting, a closed meeting to the public for purposes of discussing labor negotiations. And that was listed for 10:30 today. And we will adjourn this meeting, and then that meeting will be called to order. The question I have, and Administrator Rogers had indicated that we should just have a break, which I agree. I guess my question to Attorney Hicken is, should we stick with the 10:30 announcement on that, or can we just change it to like 10:15 or 10:20?
Best to stay as close as you can to the 10:30 time. I don't think there's a problem with moving it forward a bit, just for efficiency's sake.
Okay. Well, first of all, let's close this meeting, and then I'll announce now that let's start the meeting at 10:20. Please call in at that new number that was proposed and sent out to us, and we'll call that meeting to order. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Commissioner Mills?
So moved, Commissioner. I'll second Commissioner Mills.
Okay, Mills, motion, Commissioner Dukirk, second. Roll call vote, Commissioner Starley?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk?
Aye.
Commissioner Deschampe?
Aye.
Commissioner Deschampe? Aye. Over. So we'll reconvene at 10:20, about 15 minutes, 16 minutes, and at that time we'll have our closed meeting. Thanks to the public for being involved in our meeting today, and this meeting is adjourned.